Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we're looking to Uganda's economic status as government plans for the financial year 2025-2026. And my guest this evening is the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, and Secretary to the Treasury, Mr. Ramadan Gobi. Thank you so much for joining us, Ramadan. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, Patrick, and always a pleasure to be at KFM.
Let me begin with a very general question, because it's not many times when we have the PS in the studio, the Secretary of the Treasury, the person in charge of looking at how the economy is working. And the general question I'm beginning with, are the fundamentals of Uganda's economy solid as we speak?
The fundamentals of Uganda's economy are as solid as Mount Rwenzori, the base of Mount Rwenzori. I want to tell you that we usually look at the economy in the form of, number one, is the GDP growing? Yes, the size of the economy is growing every single year. We have had a challenge before. As you remember, our GDP growth had dropped to 3% because of COVID in 2019-20. As we speak, last June, we got the numbers and the GDP had recovered back to pre-COVID level of 6%. The second fundamental is the inflation level. Our inflation is now below the target. The target inflation rate in Uganda, targeted by BOU, is 5%. Our inflation is 3.5% last month. And there is no chance of it rising in the near future. Those are the two key ones we look at when we are looking at the fundamental of macroeconomic stability. Then when you turn to the debt level.
But you know, sometimes inflation can be unstable if their global markets are unstable. There is something called imported inflation that can be beyond your control.
Yes, and it affects those who have economies which are not resilient. We have invested in resilience of Uganda's economy. That's why we put emphasis on both policy and the budget allocation on things like agriculture to grow food, on things like household incomes of those who are at the base of the pyramid, because that's very key in getting their productive capacity, in things like supporting manufacturers with all of these incentives we give them. Sometimes Ugandans wonder why government gives people tax exemptions, free land to invest, does not discourage them from taking their money when they have harvested it, and so on and so forth. All of those are intended to ensure that the sector which is producing the goods which people are going to buy, manufacturing, works.
But let us also face it, Mr. Ramadan Gobi, is that you are able to control inflation sometimes because Uganda is food secure, because we can produce sufficient food for Uganda, which is largely not really that you have invested in agriculture. It is people tilling their land and making sure there's food on the table.
You think Uganda relies on chance or because we are so prayerful? No. It's because government of Uganda has been deliberate. You know, this country used to face food shortages. You, Patrick, you grew up with the famine. Uganda used to have famine. By the way, Ugandans will forget. Famine breaks out and people start to eat things which were not edible. You start eating this banana for making a juice. You start, some people were eating all sorts of things. I remember when I was young in Butambala, we had famine in the early 90s. Where did that famine go? You think it is because we have prayed so much these days, or God changed his mind? And it's because government has been deliberate in getting agriculture work. We liberalized it first and foremost. We removed distortions in agriculture. Those things like marketing boards, which used to set prices of agricultural produce. That's a distortion. things like subsidies. That's a distortion. When somebody does not receive a subsidy, will not go to the garden.
But the government committed itself to put 10% of its budget to agriculture, if you remember what you said, what is known as the Maputo Declaration. But you've never gone to the 10%.
It's not about Maputo Declaration. It's about government putting money in agriculture, and government has put money in agriculture, directly and indirectly. Directly through the budget, we have 1.4 trillion shillings now in agriculture. We used to have 200 billion about a decade ago. Number two, we are also putting money in agriculture indirectly. The parish development model has 1.1 trillion.
This is money going to agriculture. Mr. P.S. Let me look for specifics. When we talk about 1 trillion into agriculture from 200 billion, exactly where is that money going? Because I would have loved to see expansion of irrigation schemes. We grew up learning about the Kivimba, grew up learning about Mubuku, and largely it is still Kivimba and Mubuku.
No, sir. You need to actually invite me here with the people who are doing it, so that you can, if you are not seeing it, you can hear it. Ugandans all over the country know that irrigation schemes have multiplied almost tenfold. This government has invested about 5% of the total GDP in irrigation capacity. Very many irrigation schemes have been scattered around the country. Are they as productive as anticipated? That's the question. Maybe no. Some of them, evaluation reports have indicated actually we have invested more money in creating the facilities than the way they are being used, the capacity being utilized.
Okay,
but we have invested.
I had to pause there.
You asked, where has the money gone in agriculture? It has gone along the value chain. In research, Naro has chunked out research, Nakori, research in coffee. We have had research by NAGRIC in animals. Then too, we have invested in production by supporting people to produce, giving them technologies, seeds, and so on.
Does it make sense, with a lot of respect, that you put in money into production, you have not accessed the market? The market is there, but you're not accessing the market.
I am coming. I've told you, I've put across we have put across the value chain from research to production to value addition, then to marketing. Let me tell you, Uganda's markets are liberal now. Farmers can sell their food and other agricultural produce to anyone they want in the world. Sometimes even foreigners come and they go and buy the food from the garden. Some people think that's a bad thing. But some of us, with our economics of liberal, you are saying that instead of putting middlemen to set prices at which people should sell their agricultural produce or buy, you better leave them to get a market clearing price.
But I all know, I've heard from farmers that the prices, for example, for maize have gone so much down. Remember, maize is one of the major crops we are producing in Uganda, and sometimes when we get the bumper harvest, like we always do, we still have to beg surrounding countries, neighboring countries, to buy our maize produce.
That is true.
And within here, the prices are so low that sometimes farmers are not even making a profit.
That is true. Because agriculture is a cobweb. When a supply exceeds demand, the price reduces. When demand exceeds the supply, prices increase. There are also certain times when you will host me and you say the prices of food have gone so high. You look at maize now, it is 2,000. It used to be 200 shillings. That's how life is also. Sometimes you are happy, sometimes you are moody, sometimes you are...
But that can be cured with the serious investment in value addition. I know you've talked about the value addition. I know the president's talked about the value addition. But the value addition, we need to walk the talk in real terms.
By the way, this talk is being walked. If you went around the country now, value addition capacity has increased to the extent that actually some of our value addition facilities are lying idle. They were put in places in excess of the productive capacity. Others haven't been utilized fully by the farmers. We have 40% of the value adding capacity unutilized in the country now. It's a new problem we are dealing with, but that's a good problem. So what I want to tell you is, whereas we are not yet there, the government policy and intent, they are clear. We are putting resources in the agricultural value chain, and there is a return on this investment in the form of food security and income.
I've seen a project that more probably has turned into a white-tail fund. It has been hemorrhaging public resources because another major crop in Uganda is banana. Matoke. And there has been something called the Presidential Initiative on Banana Development or Production.
The banana plant in Busheng.
And which is supposed to create matoke flour and stuff like that. Even maybe reduce on all the garbage that we bring because of how we transport our banana. That thing
maybe we're impatient. You know, usually in Uganda we are impatient. I remember a year ago, we were in studios, might not have been these studios, and someone asked me a question that you are, wasting money investing in this white elephant called the Speak Resort Conference Center. Why are you wasting money with Sudil and stuff? And today, the money we are making in mice, in meetings, incentive, and all these other conferences we are having is massive. And now all of a sudden, everybody who goes there says, oh, this is magnificent. Nobody's talking about the wastage. I want to tell you, in the near future, when that banana project has break even, your conversation will change. It will not be a wastage. Usually government should be the one to experiment. You are like saying, let us stay as we are. No, there is a scientist who has told us, Dr. Muranga, that you people, this matoke, which is, fluctuating when it's a bumper harvest, as you are saying, people are getting very low prices. We can put a factory to add value. We package these matoke and export them. And we are saying, this is a good experiment. Let us try it. We have invested in this experiment. We hope it will turn out a good investment.
Okay, I began by asking you the fundamentals of the economy, Mr. Permanent Secretary, but somehow I had to dig in to look into the
other fundamentals.
Yeah. How about the fiscal deficit?
Fiscal deficit has reduced. This is the difference between the money we have and the money we spend. Around the COVID time in 2020, the fiscal deficit increased to double digits. Now it is below 5%. It was 4.7%, and we want it to reduce. It is slightly increased to about now 4.7. We had targeted it to go to 4.5, 4.4 as we go back to 3%, because our charter for fiscal responsibility, we want it at 3%. But also there are certain investments we have to make. In our oil and gas, we are building that pipeline. We had to get more money. We are investing now in the refinery. We are going to launch SGR. We have invested in a number of these.
What do you mean you're going to launch SGR? Actually, SGR was, there's a famous picture of the East African.
They launched the concept of East Africa.
So they threw here to launch a concept?
Yeah.
That has taken more than 10 years to be realized?
To be truthful, we delayed as Uganda. Because
this is what I'm telling you.
Why is the people like Patrick? We're always saying, where is the feasibility study? Is that thing viable? Are you not going to waste money? And some of those people who were in charge, I think you scared them. We are now determined. We have also finalized these feasibilities to build the SGR. It is in the budget, and we are going to start it this coming month.
Mr. Permanent Secretary and Secretary of the Treasury, Ramadan Gobi, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll be asking about the fiscal responsibility in managing the economy. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, who's also Secretary to the Treasury, Mr. Ramadan Gobi, and we're looking at Uganda's economic status as government plans for the financial year 2025-2026. When you're talking about the fiscal deficit, there's an element of fiscal responsibility, right? And sometimes we wonder why in your managing your budget and all that, there is always this thing called, supplementary budget. And I'm wondering, sometimes it comes so fast. In the first quarter of spending of the next budget, you're asking for more. Is this a strategy that somebody puts there, or really you don't have your numbers right?
Okay, number one, supplementary is not additional funding necessarily. Supplementary can come in the first quarter if government wants to spend money that had been allocated to certain agencies and local governments the previous year, but they did not spend it, and yet that money is still available in their accounts. We have some projects like USMID. Ugandans know it.
Yes.
It has turned around cities, those regional cities and other local
The road
governments.
infrastructure especially.
Yes. Now, those local governments, sometimes we give them the money, but sometimes they receive, they finish the planning and feasibility studies, and then they receive the money in the third quarter or fourth quarter sometimes. Sometimes when even there are like 2 months remaining, they say, no, give us the money. We have already contracted, the contractors will go on with the work. We give you, but once the financial year ends, the Public Finance Management Act of 2015 as amended requires everybody to return the money in the consolidated fund. So that money is swept back in the consolidated fund. For you to receive it July 1st, it has been sent back June 31st or 30th. To get it back in the following day, you have to first go to Parliament to appropriate it again to you. Now, there we initiate a supplementary, which is budget neutral. The money is already in the budgets. I mean, we had already programmed it. It's just to allow these entities to spend the money.
So what you're saying, there's no new money?
There's no new money. That's now number one.
What explains the supplementary budget office of the president, State House?
Let me come one by one. Why are you in a hurry? That's number one. Then number two, there is also supplementary, which is due to emergencies. Chitezi is one of them. You get Chitezi, and perhaps Chitezi now has happened at the beginning of the year. We have some money in the contingents. That is not a case. So there we shall draw the money and pay. But then it can...
But you budget for disaster preparedness, don't you?
That's what I'm saying. No. You don't budget for disaster.
No, you have money
budget for
in disaster preparedness. Yes.
Preparedness means what?
Yeah, there's money there.
No, what I mean, but it is far less money. Disaster preparedness is about, as you hear the word, preparing for disaster, but not to spend if disaster strikes.
Because you can't know.
Because you can't know the magnitude of disaster. What if the entire city is swept away? What do? A tsunami came or something and sweeps Kampala, and everybody here is in trouble. That's when we take a budget to Parliament to appropriate it for us to deal with that. Katonga failing, another. That's another one. Unforeseeable, unplanned, and unpostponable. There is also another where now we used to have a problem, but that problem this year has been sorted, where Parliament could go and get money during appropriation on the last day. They move it from certain votes and they take it to other things. Sometimes those votes could be, and in most cases, government obligations. But they are saying we don't agree with this obligation. Lower hospital, you're building it, and for us we are not seeing results, so take away the money. Or there is this and that and that. But these are obligations where government signed with an entity that on this day I will release so much money for you to do this. So we could now spend that money under the 3% by moving it from where Parliament had taken it back to where. This year the President helped us, and he asked Parliament, requested Parliament to move the money themselves back to where they had picked it. That's why you haven't seen us scrambling for supplementary in the first week.
But also what you're saying, the president,
Then
because when the minister and you, the PS, you are presenting a budget to the people of Uganda, you're actually doing it on behalf of the president.
Yes.
And it is largely done. And you have largely, so after it has been passed, and then the president, because it is being presented by you, it is largely not even touched by members of parliament that much. So 2 or 3 weeks back to say take it back and just...
I've given you a live example. This year we are implementing, they had moved 750 billion. It's now public secret. And they were requested to return it. If the president had not done that, like he was a bit, understanding and trying to accommodate in the other years, we had to do it quietly by issuing a supplementary so that you can now move that money back to where it was supposed to be. I've given you an open secret which is out there. Now you are asking about supplementary in State House and so on. I know this has been politicized. The president of Uganda can have responsibilities, especially concerning security, when, for example, there are reports of terrorism threats,
yes,
and so on and so forth. The president will not come on radio and TV and in parliament and announce, there's this and we want to do it this way and that way. He will write to get resources, and usually he can tell us quietly on some few facts, and he says, please get money and give it that security institution, but it should be classified this way for this purpose. And then a supplementary will be issued, because over and above, it wasn't planned. You remember? Mm-hmm. It wasn't planned, but now it's unpostponable. You can't postpone it even a week. And that's money which goes into such expenditures.
And I'm now interested in looking at the projected budget for the 2025-2026 financial year. And I see here a very beautiful theme, full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial, agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. I still want to take you back to the element of market access in this theme, because as an agricultural country, unless we are able to have market and have money coming to the farmers, because that's our competitive and competitive advantage, everything else may not thrive. So what are you doing to make sure that we can really access the market? And then the farmers will be happy. In fact, even corporate Ugandans can leave their corporate work and go into farming if they are sure that there's going to be a good price and a market that is going to be long term.
Number one, we start with the market through industrialization. When we set up and support industrial park development and factories that add value to agricultural produce, you have indirectly provided a market to the farmers. That one is being done across the country in different areas. Number two is by deepening the East African community integration. You've seen the government engaging with our sister states in this region to get our farmers, our manufacturers access markets within the region. That's why whenever, for example, hear that Kenya has stopped milk or eggs, everybody is concerned because they have been selling those goods there. It is government that is working on this. And as a result of that, East African community now is the largest buyer of our goods. We have a surplus trade balance with East Africa. This last year, we had a surplus of about $41, I think, $1 million. Surplus, vis-a-vis what we exported, the value, and what we imported. And my minister has been reading those numbers. They are there in that strategy paper.
Sometimes you may be looking at the key area of agriculture and all, you forget a country like Kenya is actually making a lot of money through different sectors in banking, insurance, and hotel and all this kind of stuff, media and all that kind of stuff. And you forget this. And sometimes it's very hard to believe.
Should I give you a surprise?
Yes.
Ugandan economy is far healthier than those economies you were mentioning. It's only that Ugandans, you don't love yourselves. You don't want to have bragging rights. You always try so much, to remain in bad shape.
Every time I see Mr. Ramadan Govi, the PS Minister of Finance, and I remember Ramadan Govi, the lecturer of economics at Makerere University.
Yes.
They sounded very different.
How? I was here on your program. I always used to critique in an objective manner. I tell you that this is working, this is not working, and should be fixed this way. Now, instead of recommending to someone, I'm fixing things. That's my job now as the person who's in charge of planning for the economy.
Are you finding it very hard to reconcile Ramadan, the lecturer of economics, and Ramadan, the PS Minister of Finance?
Absolutely not.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest this evening is the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and Secretary to the Treasury, Mr. Ramadan Govi, looking at Uganda's economic status. I have always wanted to know, there have been people who have been critical about how we choose to spend our money, where to invest. And there are things they call the low-hanging fruits that sometimes either, because I know it's not that you don't want, but maybe sometimes you don't get it, with all respect, in putting money in the sector of tourism, marketing tourism like you. Because if you did so, this country is so gifted, but we haven't marketed that area so much. In fact, I'm even getting a comment here from one gentleman who has been marketing Uganda more or less like single-handedly because he's interested in tourism, and that's why he is. And I'm talking about Mr. Amos Wekesa. When you look at other countries, how much they are putting into tourism and what we are putting, if we only just added more, Uganda, this would change the game.
By the way, for us who are industry economists, we say that low-hanging fruits are for lazy animals. The serious ones go for those ones in the tip.
That example, does it really apply?
And I want to tell you, Patrick, on a serious note, that tourism has been identified not by emotions or because a lot of people are talking about it, but by numbers, which have been modeled as our next major big thing in driving our growth. I think we have now popularized what we call ATMs: agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, and STI, science, technology, and innovation. And tourism, our researchers are telling me that it's likely that if we do certain things differently, by 2040 we shall be earning $50 billion from tourism. But
look at a country like Tanzania that has received about 1.8 million tourists who have traveled to Tanzania in 2023, and most of them coming from Germany, Belgium, France, and Netherlands. And I'm asking, what is our strategy? At least get about half of those come to Uganda. Because Uganda, if anything, if only we prepared ourselves well, we have better places for people to have a tourism experience than most of the East African countries.
That's what we are working on. I've told you.
You've been working on that, but there are no dividends, Mr. Ramadan.
Before I finished, by the way, there are dividends. Tourism now is a $1.4 billion industry, and it's growing very fast. It's not coming out of good luck, but because government has invested in certain areas where the private sector is leveraging. We have invested in infrastructure, we have invested in security, we have invested... Now, what is remaining, and where I agree with Amos and the group and others, and we have had conversations privately, and also we have gone public on the marketing and branding. First of all, branding, getting the content right, and then market it. And we have put to task all of those who are charged with this responsibility to put together a good strategy for doing that. Government, we are ready to invest in this area, but we must be clear and deliberate. Where are we investing and what's the return on that investment? And we are working with the stakeholders.
If you already talk about $1.4 billion investment or a $1 billion kind of market.
Yes, dividend.
Dividend.
We have got.
Yeah. Then you just need to accelerate on that.
Absolutely. And that's what we are doing. You know, there are certain things which have changed now. I've been myself now out there to test on what exactly.
Let me tell you, we have a city now that I so much love, which is called a tourism city. If you look at the road that connects the capital, Kampala, to that tourism city called Fort Portal, the road is so pathetic. In fact, even the effort to construct that road until recently, even the graders have been moved away. It is so exhausting. It is so pathetic. It is so, bad now to travel to a tourism city. If it is a low-hanging fruit of $1.4 billion, why can't that road be worked on seriously?
If you could allow me to explain things, I would explain them. I know we have 1 hour, but that very road you're talking about, we have invested in it now. That's why the graders are back and they're working on the road. There are so many other competing things, so many other roads. You want to say that we are not fixing roads? It's like someone in Kampala here may think that the government has done nothing on the roads. No, we have built so many roads, but we couldn't build every road at the same time. We have been building the oil roads, have been linking the city to different, borders. Now, we are working on those other roads, including the one to your
but what I'm asking is that the road...
By the way, you should declare conflict of interest here. That is your hometown.
It is my hometown, yeah.
And we are working on it.
But the graders were taken off.
But what about...
For more than 6 months.
They have come back.
I was just on that road yesterday.
They have come back. We gave them the money. They have come back. Ginger Road. They are back. We have given them the money. And so many other places. You see, look at this city, for example. The people of Kampala have, rightly so, been complaining that the road network in Kampala has decayed. And government has responded. We have invested good resources in Kampala. And I told you here, when I was here, earlier this year, and last year, that please, Kampala is going to turn into a construction site. And you can see different places of Kampala now under construction. That's why you have a lot of traffic and some flooding because they are working on the roads. And we are going to fix them. But you couldn't fix everything.
Recently at a conference, you said you want to facilitate rapid capital accumulation, physical, financial, and human capital. Explain all that.
We want to see growth with the transformation. Transformation means changing the look of the economy from being a predominantly agrarian, depending on gifts of nature, to an economy which is modern, with the sectors like industry and modern services, which we are talking about, driving, including tourism, the growth. But to do that, you need human beings who are skilled and facilitated. In other words, tooled enough to do those things. And that's what I was talking about. Human capital development is fundamental.
Where are you likely to get the money from? Because domestic resource mobilization seems to be a challenge.
No, we are improving.
What is your...
We are working on under our domestic revenue mobilization strategy. And our target is to increase revenue domestically created or collected by 0.5 percentage point of GDP every year. Some of us who are not economists, what is that? Just 0.5? Massive.
Yeah, but you see, when you just tried that 0.5 that you wanted to try by bringing all the technology, digital, whatever, IFRIS and all that, you saw the chaos it created. So by the time you want to go to 0.5 or even 1 percentage point, the problem is that every time you want that 0.5, instead of trying to broaden your tax base, you seem to be deepening, and the taxpayer is feeling the pinch and is coming back, is coming fighting.
Actually, Patrick, these innovations and initiatives being carried out by our tax policy and the URA, they are intended to expand the tax base. You see, there are very few people who are paying tax because others were able to sell things and they don't pay. That's why you saw up lower, that they have now come to also engulf us. We said no, we stayed to our word that everybody now is going to register on this if you want to do business in Uganda. Now, all of a sudden, those people in Chikubo, in the markets, in the wherever, who used not to pay tax are going to pay.
So now, our tax ratio GDP, I suppose, stands at 12%?
About 14%.
14%. Moving just 1 percentage point or a half of a percentage point, you say is a very Herculean task. Why is that?
Because of the structure of our economy. Our economy, although it is starting from a low base, is still largely informal. So formalizing it is a first prerequisite to collecting revenue. Two, it has a big agricultural sector which is still subsistence. That's why deepening and full monetization is important to first get these subsistence farmers into commercial agriculture, and then now develop a mechanism of taxing such a sector, because it is contributing about 25% of GDP, 24%, but paying 1% of tax. We want to first formalize it. And also, you see, our economy also has certain sectors which are big in creating GDP, but they're not paying tax. Like now the oil and gas sector, we still just construct all these projects going on. They contribute to GDP, but they don't pay tax.
They are yet to start paying.
Yes, because we are now building a base, a capacity. Once that base is there, you have infrastructure, you have modernized the agriculture, you have formalized the economy, and you have supported businesses and they are making money, then you can get revenue. First thing first feed the cow, and then you milk.
Development partners were encouraging or trying to advise that the government your ministry should be able to give capacity to local administration to increase on revenue mobilization. And they seem to be wobbly right now, and yet we are in the era of decentralization, but money, you still have to send them money. What needs to be done so that a district like any other district can be able to raise their own money and spend it there?
By the way, they are improving. We have digitized revenue collection. Before, they were collecting cash. The cashier declares whatever he wants, others don't pay. Now we have digitized, and the revenue has improved, but true, they are still at a very low level. We are working to improve revenue collection at local governments, and there has been a debate on whether they should collect and spend at source, with a lot of them advocating for that. The Ministry of Local Government has been advocating that. We are saying it's not a good idea, because when they were doing that, they were declaring very low revenue, about 20 billion. Now, when URA started to get this revenue, but remember, we take back.
What's the essence of decentralization?
The essence of decentralization is good.
I thought you also give them the liberty to
the liberty to under-declare?
No. To get the resources, the local revenue, and spend it at source.
The challenge is, when they run shortfalls, they come to the center. There, the decentralization is not cited so much. They come to the center to say, we can't pay wage and salaries, we can't run these hospitals and clinics and so on.
You are basically talking about the lack of integrity at the local level.
Absolutely, partly. I want to tell you, there's no missing words. They were under-declaring revenue. They were not doing a good job when we centralized the revenue collection. But remember, we just centralize collection, but we take back their money.
Can't you fix the accountability issue at the source? If
you are the one who's going to ask me next about corruption, even when it is at the center, imagine when corruption is decentralized. I know your next question. So it's not an easy thing to say Uganda fix accountability at every corner of Uganda. It would be easier for them to get a system. And the good thing they know, and why are they insisting on collecting? It's because they want to collect and they tell you that I've collected 5 million when they have actually collected 10 million. So that's why we are saying, for us, let us, the system transparently show us, this money is yours. It is 10 million, then we send it back to you. What is wrong with that?
You seem to have suggested, for those who listened to you at the conference, I think it was yesterday, that you want, to stop the rural, by people not to come out from the rural areas into the city.
No,
urban areas.
We want actually people to move to cities.
Yes, that's what
not the other way around.
Yes, exactly.
What we don't want,
a reduction in the rural population.
Yes, you see, economies.
What is the plan on making sure you reduce?
Let me first tell you the economics.
Yes,
economics tells us that for a country to transform, to develop, and become a modern society, people should stop living in rural areas, scattered there, here and there. The neighbor is some 200 meters, not even meters, like a kilometer away, and so on. First, providing social services is difficult.
I get that.
Piping water, doing this, and security. That's why they are stealing their goats, and even nobody will come to your rest. When people converge in towns, in cities, it helps to provide services. It brings the conglomeration, economies and advantages, and it becomes easier to serve them, to serve the people. So you're asking, what is the plan? The plan is to invest actually in those people, to start creating an economy of farm. In factories, Ugandans should become more of factory workers than people who are going to someone's garden to dig.
Is that why today I woke up to headlines saying that next year we are getting 5 more cities?
We haven't yet done that. That was a misreporting. True, there was a paragraph in the speech, but the minister never read that paragraph because it was stopped. We had not yet. Uganda's
who smuggled in the paragraph?
No, let me first tell you. Uganda's budget is highly consultative and participatory. Before my minister comes to read the budget, he has consulted His Excellency the President, who is, by the way, the constitutional Minister of Finance.
He's actually reading the budget on behalf of the President.
Absolutely. He has consulted development partners. He has consulted, we consult private sector. We consult civil society. We consult and put together a document called a strategy. Then we come and present it to the public in a national conference. Now, when an item has not been fully consulted on and agreed, we shouldn't be presenting it. We have to consult further. So we are consulting on that particular item, and we shall, it's a process. By the time we end, we should have...
I know, but in your own understanding, really, are these cities viable? Because even the cities that we have already, they're just they're cities in name.
In my position where I sit...
You don't want to comment on
when I give opinion, I don't have opinion anymore. I work with the policy, because my opinions sometimes are misunderstood. And sometimes, actually, they bias people. They say, Ramadan already said this. That he will not support us. Or he already said this. Let us lobby him more. So I better stick to the policies we have agreed on. The only opinions I give is economics. And that one, I don't have qualms in giving. But that one, I'm afraid, I may not be in a position.
You also talked about sustained demographic transition, continued reduction in both death rate and birth rates.
Yes.
How is that going to be done?
It's already in motion, actually. Ugandans have reduced dying. It is a very good thing. The health indicators have improved, actually, Patrick, that most of the positive ones, they cover going up. Things like when you look at the people who have been immunized, the population that has been immunized against all those sorts of diseases we used to study in our primary school.
Life expectancy has gone high.
Life expectancy has increased.
Yes, that's true.
Women who are having babies,
maternal mortality has reduced.
Now, maternal and so. So, because of that, death rates has gone down. But birth rate, although it is reduced, it's reducing at a very low pace. Ugandans are still very fertile. That's not a bad thing if you are looking at it in a humane way. And but when you are looking at it economically, societies transform when they reduce both.
We are likely to have a demographic catastrophe, aren't we? Instead of a dividend.
No. We are going to have a dividend.
No, how would we get a dividend?
We are going to have
such a young population, Mr. Gobi, and that population is not prepared enough in terms of skills and all that.
We are preparing it. Ugandans, by the way, let me tell you, out there, although we read these bad reports, Ugandans are considered by so many people going to read reports as some of the most trainable, the most creative, and quite very innovative. And you know, this English speaking, the fact that most Ugandans have gone to school up to some years of schooling, they are trainable. Many investors come here knowing I'll get labor. Even if someone doesn't know how to do something, I will train them and they will do it.
I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us, but quite frankly, I thought I could even go on and on with you because there are so many things to cover. But all the same, we want to thank you for your submission and for the time. It's not very often we can have the Secretary of the Treasury with us. What's going to be your concluding remark?
My concluding remark to Ugandans, fellow Ugandans, we need to be more now optimistic about our destiny. Our destiny is $500 billion economy. In this generation, before
that's weird.
Before you and I die, we should leave a Uganda with $500 billion worth of GDP. And once the pie becomes big, everybody is happy.
And that is Mr. Ramadan Gobi, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and Secretary. Well, we wish you
by
luck
2040.
By 2040, that's about a quarter of a century from now.
About 15 years.
Oh, yes.
15,
that's about 15 years.
We shall be there.
All right. Thank you so much. And for you, the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless Uganda.